Okay, guys, today I'm going to go after some low-hanging fruit, so to speak. So there is a lot of, vegan arguments on why veganism is correct and why we shouldn't eat meat and so on and so forth. And some of it is relatively scientific sounding and requires quite a bit of sort of formal debunking and to show where the logic flaws are. And some of it's just pure nonsense. And so I'm gonna go after some of the pure nonsense today. Before I do that, I'm gonna point out kind of what I'm doing. This little picture is just kind of from today. This is some of the rowing I'm still working on improving my time to hopefully break the 1,000 meter world record on the rowing machine, which is fairly difficult for you guys that haven't done that. So today I'm working in a low stroke rate, about 20 strokes per minute is my target. And the time was, the average pace was 129 time per 500 meters is a pace there. And that's most people that row would know that's a pretty respectable time, particularly at 21 strokes per minute. Again, the target is 20, so not quite where I want to be, but very, very close. Doing 300 push-ups a day. Been doing that for 45 days now just for fun, knocking that stuff out, doing fine. It's gotten to where I'm doing 3 sets of 90 and then a set of 30. Hopefully I'll get to 3 sets of 100. And these aren't perfect all the way, perfect push-ups, but they're reasonable push-ups. And so that'll be the short-term goal. I'll try to knock that out for 100 days. And then I've got some things I've been playing with, and I'm gonna put some full YouTube reviews on these things in the coming future. And so there's a couple items that people have asked me to test out and try out. And one is the sort of X3 bar that Dr. John Jakish has. And so I'll give my input on that. I've got the Auto Wild grill, which is a high-end grill. It gets up to 1,500 degrees. So I'll be talking about my experience with that. And then the Juve red light / infrared device. And I'll talk about what I know about that and what my experience has been on those things. And so that's coming soon. But for now, back to the sort of the vegan nonsense. And the first bit of nonsense is we hear that, the only animals that can get atherosclerosis is an herbivore. And therefore, because humans get atherosclerosis from ingesting cholesterol, we therefore must be herbivores as well. So that's the sort of the vegan argument. And that goes back to the fact that when rabbits were first fed cholesterol in their diet, high cholesterol diets, they developed atherosclerotic lesions. And that goes back to the 1920s. And so the theory is that you have to be, an herbivore to develop atherosclerosis. And so unfortunately, there is data in the literature that clearly shows that that's not correct. In fact, this study behind me was a study done several years back looking at domestic cats, which most people would agree are carnivorous animals. And it shows very clearly that those domestic cats can develop atherosclerotic lesions. And that was done feeding them, yes, a higher fat diet, but also their diet had standard cat food, grains, and that stuff in there. And interestingly, the biggest association with atherosclerotic plaque development was triglyceride level in those cats. And so, interestingly enough, human beings also, when they have elevated triglycerides, we see that is even often more predictive of atherosclerotic heart disease. And so that's an interesting study out there. The second sort of debunking, or this sort of myth, is that, well, look how big and strong gorillas get, and they get their protein from plants, and therefore humans don't need to get protein from animals because gorillas are big, and look at cows, and look at elephants and giraffes, and so on and so forth. And so let's look at the gorilla specifically, okay? Because a gorilla is a primate, and arguably humans are primates. And so the average sort of male silverback gorilla is around 300 pounds or so, maybe a little bit bigger. And, and they've got some decent muscle on them often. I am about 250 pounds, just for perspective. What does an average day of eating look like for the silverback gorilla? Well, they eat 40 pounds. That's right, 40 pounds of vegetation every single day to put on that sort of size. They spend 80% of their waking hours chewing, constantly chewing, because that nutritional quality is so low that it takes them that much food and that much chewing time to be able to obtain that muscle. So that would be the equivalent of me eating about 34 pounds of food a day to maintain my muscle size, which is obviously I'm not going to do. I don't want to spend 80% of my time chewing. In fact, if we look at the anthropologic records looking at early humans based on jaw structure, it was estimated that early humans spent approximately 4% of their time chewing. And so that's a dramatic departure from what we see with gorillas at 80%. And chimpanzees, who eat arguably a little bit more nutritious diet because they tend to include more fruit in the diet, they spend 65% of their time chewing. Now remember, we've had primate animals that have been eating a fruit-based diet for arguably about 25 million years. They did not grow a big brain. They still have the same size, small 200, 300, 400 cc brain that they had 25 million years ago. And it was not until humans started eating meat that we grew that big brain. And so the other interesting thing about gorillas and many other primates is they do something called coprophagia. Coprophagia means they eat their own poop. And so why do they do that? They eat that because digesting the food they have the one time through often isn't sufficient to extract the nutrition because it's so nutrient difficult to extract that nutrition. It's not very bioavailable. So they'll sort of recycle that, eat their own poop to extract nutrients like vitamin B12. So the argument that humans should only eat plants because of a gorilla is a silly argument. In fact, if we look at the world's biggest animal, the biggest animal in the world by far is a mammal called a blue whale. And a blue whale is a strict carnivore. And the blue whale, this will be the next topic. So the next topic is that in order to be a carnivore, you have to have long claws and sharp pointy teeth, and you have to run down and bite your prey by the neck to obtain food. That's the only way you could possibly be a carnivore. And so therefore, because humans don't have long claws and long teeth, and we don't run super fast and latch onto our prey with our teeth, we therefore cannot possibly eat meat. Well, let's look at the blue whale. Again, the blue whale doesn't have long claws. It doesn't even have teeth. It has a balin. And those things, all they do is siphon krill. They are carnivores without long, pointy teeth or long claws. And there are many examples of carnivorous animals in the wild that don't have those same features. But let's talk about, humans adopted tool usage. And some people say, well, it's not fair, you can't use tools. No other animal uses tools. Well, that, in fact, is absolutely incorrect. There are many animals in the wild that do use tools to obtain food. And we can start with many of the primates like chimps, gorillas, macaques, and orangutans, which all have been noted to use tools to obtain food. We see dolphins in the wild will also use, and remember, dolphins, again, are carnivores. And so dolphins will use tools to obtain food. So will the octopi. Crows, additionally, will use tools. We see things like rats or other rodents will use tools to obtain food. Elephants will use tools as well, often though it's not for obtaining food. So many animals in the wild will use tools. We are not the only ones that use that to obtain food. And so the argument that you have to kill an animal with only what you have and you can't use a tool is, again, another ridiculous argument made by the vegans. I think this stuff just needs to be dispelled. I mean, that stuff is easy to debunk. Hopefully we can get back to more regular sort of discourse, and then we can sort of put up little epidemiology studies, which again are absolute garbage anyway. I kind of say that tongue in cheek, but some of these arguments you hear about why we're herbivores is just they're just kind of ridiculous. The other one I'll throw in there is pH, gastric pH. A lot of people will say, well, humans don't have a very acidic stomach and we're more like herbivores. That's absolutely patently false. I mean, almost all the data out there, and it's easily findable, shows that healthy humans, have a gastric pH of about 1 to 1.5, which is among the lowest of all animals on the planet, and puts us in category with even more acidic than many actual predators like lions and tigers. We have a pH that is on par with scavenger animals like hyenas, like vultures, and other birds of prey, and that is because, very likely, as we evolved first as scavengers, later turning into hunters. And so, anyway, I hope this little bit of debunking helps you guys out when you go up against some of the more knuckleheaded vegans out there. I mean, some of them are a little more sophisticated, but there's some that are so far out there, it's almost laughable. And so hopefully we can get rid of the laughable stuff, get rid of the notion that human beings are herbivores, because that's not supported by really any science whatsoever. All right, guys. what else is out there? The other, and this is another one. This is another argument I've made this many times. Is the argument that vegans are the most ethical, or eating vegan is the most ethical way and environmentally sustainable way on the planet. That is patently also false. The most ethical way to eat, if you're looking about killing the least animals, if you're looking at the best for environmental sustainability, would be to support a regenerative animal agriculture system. You know, patronize people like Joel Salatin, Gabe Brown, Alan Savory's crew with the Savory Institute. Those things would be the most environmentally protective ways to do that. And no, not everybody does that. No, most people don't do that. Most people don't eat for the environment. Most people don't eat for ethics. Most people eat because they want nutrition. That's just the way it is. Now, if you single yourself out as a vegan for the animals for ethics, and that is what you profess, then in order to do that the best way, then you should go find a grass-fed farmer and support those guys and eat grass-fed animals. That's the end of the story on that. Okay, guys, hope you guys like, subscribe. I'll put a few links in there, I think. That's about it. Anyway, look forward to those reviews. Look forward to more videos. And I'll talk to you guys later. Take care. Bye-bye.